The Martingale strategy. A strategy that involves placing a small bet down followed by two conditions. First is every time you win, you just simply keep placing that small bet down. Second is every time you lose, you place a bigger and bigger bet down for every continuous loss. With every one of these bets will not only recover any lost money from when you started losing, but each one also profits you the amount you would have won on your original small bet, letting you from there restart the process of betting small again. So the idea behind this is that it would be so highly unlikely for anyone to have such an unlucky losing streak that they would never be in a position that they couldn't afford the next bet and instead keep playing forever, slowly but gradually building up their money. Now there are a lot of different variations of the Martingale strategy out there across many different gambling games, but the most common and simplest one we're going to look at is used on any gambling game on bets where you'd get double your money back. This is because all you have to do if you lose on any given bet is to double your betting amount from the previous bet, which at any given point, any of those bets, if you win on them, would not have only recovered all your losses, but would have also gained you an additional £1. So down to business. Does this Martingale strategy actually work? Well, we're going to find out using a roulette simulation I've created that can play 1000 games of roulette per second. But before we jump in, there are 3 things to note about our simulation. The first is that we'll be using a European roulette table, meaning on the board there is only one single green zero, instead of an American roulette style table that not only has the one single green zero, but also the double green zeros on the board. Second, we'll have no maximum betting limit, allowing us to bet as much as we want to really see if we can play indefinitely. And the third, where do we want to place our bets? If we look at the roulette table, we have 6 options to choose from, which all have a 48.65% chance for us to win on any of our bets. Well, since they all have the same odds, we'll choose to place our bets on the 19 to 36 numbers. So without further ado, let's take a look. So yep, this will be a lot to take in. But don't worry, I'll talk you through it as I run it slowly for now at 2 games of roulette per second. We first have at the very top the starting amount of money we'll be using, which for now is set at £100. To the right of that, we have the current round we're on, because if our doubling down strategy fails to go indefinitely, then we'll just reset our balance back to £100 to retest the strategy. From there, we have statistics being tracked in 4 categories, the first being the current run being played, the second is averages, meaning that it gathers all the information from all the completed runs and displays the averages of all that data, and the third and fourth columns looks as well at all the completed runs, but focuses on the most amount of money the run achieved before going on a losing streak that ended the run. And from our simulation knowing that, it can display the shortest completed run and the longest completed run. Now each column is tracking 8 different statistics. The first row looks at the current balance of the run, but for these 3 columns, since they track runs that are already completed, then this counts as the run's final balance it finished on. The second row looks at the highest balance the run has ever reached. The third looks at the lowest balance the run has ever dropped to. The fourth looks at the biggest bet the run has ever placed. But you'll come to notice for the averages column for this row is that the number leans towards the biggest bet placed instead of being a fixated bet amount like the other columns will have. The fifth row looks at the longest loss streak the run has ever had. The sixth looks at how many games of roulette we have played. The seventh tells us how much time has gone by if each game of roulette was exactly 1 minute long. So 10 spins of the roulette wheel would mean 10 minutes have gone by. And finally, the eighth row, which is actually just an additional 25 rows, looks at each type of bet we can place and sees how many times we've lost on each one of those bets. So with everything said, let's restart the simulation and jump it up to 1000 spins per second and see the results we get. And as you can see already with how many rounds are flying by, this tells us the strategy with a starting balance of £100 isn't going indefinitely, as it keeps running into a lack of money problem where it can't afford the next bet. So with that said, if any of these runs finishes on a profit, which in this case they would have to have a final balance of £101 or higher, then this strategy can still be successful in making a profit. So let's look more into this. If we shift our eyes towards our shortest run of all the games, we can see we can't actually get a shorter game than this one, as within under an hour of playing time passed, this run never won once, with it straight up losing 6 times in a row, costing £63 to come to a final balance of £37, which we know is below £100, so it isn't profitable. Now for time's sake, I'm going to speed up the video footage I have of the simulation so we can see the longest run out of 1000 completed runs. We can see now that after 2 days and 4 hours it managed to get up to a balance of £1,631 before going on its loss streak of 10 losses in a row, costing the run £1,023. Which still lands it on a nice profit of £508, which if you were to put that to an hourly rate for the whole run, it would be like making £9.77 an hour. As we finish our 1000th game, we can look at the average return of this strategy with £100. So the average run would last about 2 hours, with being able to achieve about £78 profit, whereabouts then that will go on a loss streak of 7 losses in a row to end the run altogether, costing the run £121 to end on a final balance of £57. Meaning this strategy with £100 would be like paying the casino £21.50 an hour, even though it might not be apparent until the game ending loss streak kicks in. So now let's jump up to the £1,000 starting budget and let's look straight away at this interesting pattern which might have caught your eye in the £100 budget. And that is if you look at the amount of times we've lost in each of the categories, you'll start to notice that each bet amount has around half as many losses as the ones above, which will be an in-depth topic I'll talk for you later to why this happens, but it ultimately stems from only having about a 50% chance to win on any bet amount. But for the meantime, you can already see the strategy is failing at going indefinitely on £1,000 due to how many rounds are going by. So I'll go ahead and speed up the video footage towards 1000 completed rounds, being 20 minutes of footage so we can get to the juicy information on this strategy. And if you want to watch the full length videos of these simulations, I've left links in the description that allow you to observe them at your own pace. So starting with the shortest run again, we can see once again that we can't get a shorter run than this, as it didn't even make £1, and with less than an hour again, it slid down a 9 loss streak slide, with on the way down a total of £511 falling out of its pockets before landing on its bum with only £489 left. Though the longest run did very well again, where after 20 days and 4 hours it made a profit of £13,845 from the starting balance before going on its loss streak of 13 losses in a row, costing the run £8,191 to fall to £6,654. Which at an hourly rate for this run would make it work out at earning you £11.68 an hour. And as we can see the last run being completed, we can look at the average runs of a £1,000 budget. So with an average playing time of 1 day and 8 hours going by, you'd expect to make £675 profit before soon going on a 10 loss streak, costing £1,223 to fall to around £452. which your average hourly rate on this strategy would be like paying the casino £15.22 an hour. Which is quite funny in a way, because in less than an hour, the shortest run had a better final balance of achieving £37 more than the average run did in 36 hours. Anyway, time to click our way towards £10,000 now and see if we are more fortunate here. I've already run the simulation up to 1,000 completed runs, so a bit of a spoiler alert, that means we're not fortunate in terms of going indefinitely. So with about 3 hours of footage, I'm going to start speeding this up towards the end results. Jumping in on the shortest run out of the 1000 games, we can see for the first time that we didn't have a single run that went on a run killing losing streak right from the start. Though it wasn't far off, as still in less than an hour it only made £4 before going on that run killing losing streak of 13 losses in a row, costing the run £8,191 to show itself up at a £1,813 final balance. Compare that now to our longest run that went on for half a year, being a total playing time of 152 days and 8 hours. It made a generous profit of £103,440 before going on its losing streak of 16 losses in a row, with not too bad of a fall of losing £65,535 to land on a final balance of £47,905. Which, as nice of a profit that is, it would still only work out earning an hourly rate of £10.37 an hour to achieve that. Sliding towards the averages now of all the 1000 completed runs, we can see the average run tends to end after still a pretty lengthy time period of 7 days and 12 hours of playing time, earning about £5,063 profit before tripping up to a loss streak of about 13 losses in a row to end the run, losing an average of £10,542 to sit on an end final balance of £4,521, where in all it'd be like each run would be losing £30.44 an hour. Right, onwards to a £100,000 budget, and how are we going to get on here? Well, already it only took about making £1,800 before we got 15 consecutive losses in a row. But hey, starting with £100,000, we can now accommodate for those kind of loss streaks. So let's look towards the end results, where after 2.5 hours of footage, we have just 100 completed games. But that's just because now these runs do last a lot longer. For the shortest run, it had a total of 1 day and 1 hour of playing time, which to be fair is still a long time to play for. So it ran through to making £681 profit before losing 16 times in a row, dropping £65,545 downwards all the way to its final balance of £35,146, which that run would be like paying the casino £2,594.16 an hour. And the longest run being almost a year at an insane 334 days and 19 hours of playtime, reaching a total profit of £234,652 before going on its loss streak of 18 losses in a row, falling a total of £262,143 to a final balance of £72,509, which is the first time a longest run has come back with less than what it started with, which means for this run it paid the casino at a rate of £3.32 an hour. And as we finish our 100th run, we'll take a look at our averages. So after about 64 days and 11 hours of playing time, we'd average a profit of £44,031 before we hit around that time of the game losing lose streak of about 16 losses in a row, taking off us about £52,961, leaving us with about £47,039 balance left. So that would be working towards overall paying the casino on average £34.23 an hour. So the £100,000 budget has failed us. But now we've got a truly worthy test which should be more than enough by now to test if the strategy can truly succeed. And that is starting out with £1 million. And with this I've got 12 hours of footage, so I'm going to speed this up again to see what went on. So even with £1 million, it still fails to go indefinitely, though it definitely takes a lot longer to fail as we only got 50 completed runs in that time. But still, let's take a look into the results. The shortest run, being only 14 days and 11 hours of playtime, got a profit of £9,717 before going on its loss streak of 19 times in a row, costing £524,287 to land on £485,430. Letting this run pay the casino at a minus £1,482.91 an hour. Though now to the longest run, this one went a whopping 7,434 days and 9 hours of playing time, which that time converts to about 20 years, where it achieved a profit of £5,055,050 before going on a 22 loss streak costing £4,194,303 to be left with £1,860,747, which makes the longest run go back into a profit, which in terms of an hourly rate would make this run make you £4.82 an hour. Quite the millionaire lifestyle, eh? And with our 50th run coming into completion, we'll look at the averages. So it takes about 609 days and 10 hours of playing time to reach an average of £414,401 profit, whereabouts then it will look to go on a 20 loss streak, which carries with it an anvil of about £1,038,089, free falling its way all the way down to £376,312, making the overall average hourly rate return of this strategy with £1 million to be losing £42.64 an hour. But to be fair, with about 609 days of playing time, it would take you on average a very long time before you saw that loss streak kicking in. Though we do know that it will always kick in at some point. So let's go back to the chalkboard and look more into why this happens. So remember with the loss streaks and how many times we lost on each one, where they always seemed about half of the amount of the one above? Well, if we put those loss streaks on the board, alongside it with the bet cost and then next to that the percentage chance to lose on each one of those bets, well, we'll start to see for the percentage chances that they are all about half of the one above. Which if we have about a 50% chance to get on a 1 loss streak and about a 25% chance to get on a 2 loss streak, then it makes sense that we would start to see half the amount of losses on a 2 loss streak when compared to a 1 loss streak. And this effect carries on through all the loss streaks, and because of that I like to call it the trickle effect. Because every time you manage to lose twice on any given loss streak, you'd expect to see on the next loss streak ahead one more loss to happen. So even when you have an obscenely low chance on going on say a 20 loss streak, if you play long enough the trickle effect will make its way down, where it actually becomes a high chance that a 20 loss streak should happen, and even multiple times, since almost all runs on the £1 million budget had to pay out for a 20 loss streak, where it then likely couldn't afford a 21 loss streak. But if we look at the percentage chance on going on a 20 loss streak, we can see it has about a 0.0002% chance of happening. But that percentage on its own, or compared to other low percentage chances of losing, we can't really grasp how unlikely these chances are to happen, just that they are really unlikely to happen. So let's convert these percentages into the odds of them happening. So now all these odds let us know when we will hit a certain loss streak. Like if we look towards that 20 loss streak, we can now see it happens in about 1 in every 615,460 games played, or if you're looking at the first loss streak being a 1 in 1.95, that happens in just under every 2 games. Knowing now when we're due to lose on any given loss streak, we can look at the average amount of money we'd have made at that point. This is worked out because we know we're going to be winning on average 48.65% of our games played. So for example, on again a 20 loss streak, 48.65% of our 615,460 games would be 299,421 games. And because any of our bets when won will win us £1, we can say we'll have about £299,421 in about every 615,460 games played. Okay, so we know when a loss streak is expected to be due and how much money we'd have averaged at that point, but what would we have to pay back to afford any given loss streak? Well, all we need to do is look at the bet cost we'd need to pay plus adding up any previous losses. So with this new information, we'll store that in a new column. And as we can see with the 20 loss streak, it would cost us £1,048,575, meaning every time we'd make about £299,421, we're due back to pay that £1,048,575. And from there, we can see that on any given row, the money we make doesn't justify how much we'd have to pay back. In fact, if we draw up a new column to show the average return percentage for the money needed to cover any given loss streak, we can see we get less and less return for our money the further we go down the loss streaks. So that is certainly a lot we have covered, and I believe we're ready to ask ourselves again this question from before. Does the Martingale strategy actually work? Well, overall I'd say it's an obvious no. But that's not to dismiss the odds of you going on a losing streak, because you can give yourself a high percentage chance that it could work in some way, whereby having a fixed budget that you want to risk, where that budget helps decide a strict amount of games you should play to hopefully get you a bit of profit, where then you'll have to have the discipline to walk away from the strategy forever, then there can be that high percentage chance of it working for a bit of profit. But if you wanted to keep using this strategy, then we not only have the statistics, but also the crazy amount of simulations to prove that it's guaranteed time and time again that it will end up leeching off the players using it. And with most gambling games having maximum betting limits, it just makes it so the games don't have to have too much patience before they start profiting. And as I said near the start, there are different variations of the Martingale strategy out there, but you'll probably find with almost all of them that they're all just different variations of the same problem, where they are not profitable long term, but there is a chance it could work in the short term for a quick buck. So at this point, I'd be looking at saying goodbye, but I'd like for curiosity's sake to give the doubling down strategy one more shot at proving itself, where we'll jump back into the simulation, but with this time starting with now a £10 million budget. So I'll let it run for a short bit, but as you'd expect, I'm going to skip near to the end of the footage, because after reaching about 19 hours of footage, going indefinitely still didn't work as we managed to get 10 games recorded. But if you wanted to watch it more closely, then remember the links for all the simulation footages are in the description. So how did the categories do? Well, zooming near towards the end, we can see with the shortest run that it still went on a playing time of 101 days and 22 hours, making a profit of £69,392 before hitting its losing streak of 23 losses in a row to end the run, costing it £8,388,607 to fall to £1,680,785 for its final balance, meaning the shortest run would be like losing £3,401.15 an hour. Over to the longest run, which was certainly a long run because it had a playing time of 16,003 days and 14 hours, which converted to years makes it approximately 44 years of playing time, which in turn for its effort it made £10,882,485, but where it did then eventually hit a 24 loss streak, taking a £16,777,215 drop all the way to £4,105,270. And this on an hourly rate would equate to making a loss of £15.35 an hour. Okay, so now on to the averages, which for a playing time of 4,661 days and 12 hours, which is about 13 years of playing time, you'd profit about £3,169,948, which by then you'd be looking at taking that losing streak of 23 losses in a row, costing about £9,227,467 to crash down to an average of £3,942,481, meaning for a £10 million budget with this strategy, you'd be paying back on average £54.15 an hour. And we can see the trickle effect really did average its way down almost half on each section, which really does prove that these loss streaks will happen if you play long enough. So we'll leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the Martingale strategy and that you'll continue on to look after yourselves. Goodbye for now.